1989. Revolution in Romania. The fall of the Berlin Wall. A brush with democracy is crushed at Tiananmen Square. There's decades where nothing happens, and then there's years where everything seems to happen. Lost in the kerfluffle of revolutions and international incidents, California continued its program of spraying malathion to control the growing Mediterranean fruit fly population. Then, something sinister struck. December 3rd, 1989. Letters addressed to Los Angeles Mayor Tom Bradley, received by both the LA Times and Fresno Bee, assigned credit for the recent waves of medfly infestation to a group calling themselves the Breeders. The letter took credit for several of the recent outbreaks, saying that the flies had been bred and released in retaliation for California's malathion spraying program.
State officials have probably noticed an increased as well as unusual distribution of medfly infestations in Los Angeles County since March 1989. Make the medfly problem unmanageable and make aerial spraying politically and financially intolerable.
Malathion, an organophosphate pesticide used to control insects in agricultural settings, was being used to spray the Los Angeles area. An acetylcholinesterase inhibitor, malathion, acts on nerve cells, interrupting the breakdown of choline at the synapse, preventing muscles from relaxing, leaving things in a state of tension. As California's medfly epidemic grew throughout the 1970s, the state's farmers grew increasingly concerned. If the invasive medflies expanded into the San Joaquin Valley, even more agricultural damage could occur. Medflies are a risk for apples, avocados, grapes, and tomatoes, all major crops in California. More than $175 million were spent trying to control medflies between 1975 and 1993. The Sunshine State's farmers would bring the full might of the state to bear on this pressing issue. California began a vigorous spraying program to try and keep the invasive flies in check. Governor Jerry Brown ordered the state to begin malathion spraying on July 11, 1981, in order to protect the more than $545 million of annual California agricultural exports. However, not everyone was on board with this plan. DDT, the pesticide that almost wiped out the bald eagle, had been banned in 1972. People had grown much more skeptical of industry research regarding pesticide safety. The credulous public of the 50s and 60s had been replaced by individuals who questioned every public action. Public concern regarding the spraying went viral. Even the cast of Cheers got in on the act. To reassure citizens of malathion safety, the California Conservation Director, B.T. Collins, even swallowed some malathion. There's no word if there were any repercussions from this stunt. It certainly didn't kill the wave of concern regarding malathion's safety. Malathion was later found to be an acute toxin, if not a reproductive hazard. However, in the 1980s, the risks posed by malathion were still uncertain due to a lack of confidence in pesticide industry safety testing. In 1989, when the mysterious letter arrived at the doorstep of the LA Times and Fresno Bee, it was initially met with derision. Cranks trying to take responsibility for various crimes was a relatively common phenomenon, such as the time the supposed Zodiac killer called into a local San Francisco morning talk show.
Just tell us anything you want to. And then we'll come back and I'll give you a specific answer to this question, are you going to the gas chamber? Stay with us so I can answer that for you. But will you attend on Jim just a minute and tell him what you're feeling or talk to us?
Just tell us what's going on inside you right now, Sam, please.
I have headaches.
All right. How long have you had those headaches, Sam? In a long time?
Since I killed a kid.
If it all boils down to the question of you're giving yourself up, if you could be assured that you wouldn't get capital punishment for myself.
I don't want to give myself up.
Huh?
I want to kill those kids.
This Zodiac killer was traced and later discovered to be just a patient in a mental health facility. So, the initial skepticism around someone taking credit for a medfly outbreak was not unreasonable. Then, the invasive species researchers spoke up. Deliberate release of medflies could explain a peculiar observation, they said. Most of the medfly infestations the researchers had observed just prior to the breeder's letter had been surprising due to the limited fly larvae in the areas affected. Suddenly, the letters looked a lot more credible. If someone was intentionally releasing medflies, that was a big problem. The letters were handed over to the Los Angeles Police Department. The California agricultural industry does not take threats lightly. The FBI was even brought in to deal with this case of agricultural terrorism. Their investigation promptly went nowhere. No one had heard of the breeders. Even today, they remain enigmatic. With no additional evidence or leads, the investigation remained open but did not progress much further. The USDA, desperate to head off anything that could worsen the infestations, took a crack at the case. One of their researchers left a personal ad in a local paper trying to make contact. It's unknown if they ever did. Assemblyman Ruben S. Ayala introduced a bill shortly after the breeder's letter was published. SB 1754 made the deliberate import or transportation of Mediterranean fruit flies illegal on June 22, 1990. Out of the 61,731 passengers and 2,430 cargo shipments that were searched in 1990, none showed signs of medfly larvae. Shortly thereafter, California discontinued their malathion spraying program for unrelated reasons. The breeders were never apprehended and did not make any further public contact beyond the 2 letters sent to the LA Times and Fresno Bee. Speculation on the identity of the breeders is difficult, since no additional letters were ever publicly sent. Was it a lone person, or a group of people breeding masses of fruit flies in relative anonymity? Or maybe it was all just a bluff to discourage further spraying.